Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, children, this is the new topic that we are starting. And this is direct speech, indirect speech. All right. We have studied it earlier, but we'll obviously go through all the rules. And in class 9, basically, you have this topic, direct speech and indirect speech, but in class 10, the sentences are a bit advanced, and the chances in the multiple choice questions are that there will be more questions regarding direct speech and indirect speech. And there are a few rules, obviously. Most of the questions in direct speech and indirect speech are regarding the conversion of direct speech to indirect speech and indirect speech to direct speech. All right. So before we move on to the conversion, firstly, we'll just go through the concept of what is basically direct speech. What do you understand by direct speech? When I say direct speech, what do you understand by that? Okay. Uh, if you have any answer, please you can raise your hand, and I'll give you a chance to speak. Okay. Hmm. Direct speech is basically when you are quoting somebody else's speech. Somebody speech here in the sense is words. Okay. If somebody has said something, and if you want to uh, quote his words exactly, whatever he has said, what words he has used, and you want to quote it in some writing or in words, you will write it in inverted commas, and you will uh, tell the person the direct speech of the speaker. That is basically direct speech, which basically news reporters usually do. And let's have a look at the example over here. Okay, I'll just share a screen with you here. Let's write it down. This is basically how you write it into inverted commas. Winter vacation not yet announced. All right, such a nice statement I found for you. So this is basically uh, for example, this was something that was said by the Ministry of Education, announced, and I want to quote his the minister's statement to you. So I will exactly quote these words, whatever he had said, without changing any tense, without changing any of the helping verbs, and without even conveying the same message in my own words, as it is, as it was said by the minister, like winter vacation not yet announced. So these are the words of the minister. This is just an example. Okay, don't worry, you might get some vacation. Let's see, hope for good. But this is just an example of a direct speech. Okay, there can be many such sentences which people say, and you would like to quote it. Like in many of the lectures, in speeches and bayans, you hear the orators and the speakers quoting from the Quran and the Hadith. So see, when they exactly quote the Quran and the Hadith, in writings they have to follow these rules. They have to open inverted commas. They have to write that particular verse of the Holy Quran or the Hadith as it is exactly in the same words, and then they would put a full stop and close inverted commas. And even while speaking, when they say it, they have to exactly quote the same words. And now, what is an indirect speech? Okay, an indirect speech is when um, You basically report somebody else's speech or somebody else's words, somebody else's message in your own words. Okay, that is basically an indirect speech where you don't use the, see, I'm writing these points over here. Uh, reporting, reporting somebody else's words. Okay, and it can be in your own words. All right, then not the exact words or speech of the speaker. You won't exactly use the same words as it was said by the speaker, the person saying it. You will say it in your own words. So that is why it is called indirect speech, and it is also known as reported speech. In the exams, they sometimes use this term, reported speech. So do not get confused. Reported speech and indirect speech are both the names of one thing, same thing. Do you get it, boys? All right, this is just the definition of what is direct speech and what is indirect speech. And now, moving on to the next topic regarding direct and indirect speech, that is the punctuation of usually direct speech, because in indirect speech you don't have punctuation basically. Don't have punctuation in the sense there is no specific punctuation for indirect speech. In direct speech you have to be very careful with the punctuation, that you do not make any mistakes. Now I'll give you one or two examples. Okay, there are two ways in which you punctuate direct speech. We'll look at one of the ways today, and I'll tell you about the punctuation. Then I'll also tell you the errors which students make in the exams, so that you don't repeat those mistakes. Okay, let's take a very simple example. Ali said, comma, open inverted commas, open inverted commas. And acha, just pause, boys, just a break. Make sure those of you those of you who are in the Urdu class, please tell them to join the English class. After a short while, inshallah, their Urdu class would be starting. Okay. Few boys are sitting just your Urdu teacher is just sitting beside me, and there are few boys in that class. Please join this room. After a short while, inshallah, your Urdu class will start. All right. Anyway, let's continue again. So you are talking about the punctuation of the direct speech. Let's see. You are trying to quote something that Ali has said, and you will obviously write it down exactly in the words that Ali has used, and you will say, Ali said, let's say, I am going to Islamabad. All right. My goodness, what are these new boys coming up? Hmm.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Yes. Walaikum assalam.
आपने
Yes, beta. Make sure you are in the class, and the class had already started. So now listen carefully. If you have any questions, you can, after the class, you can ask the questions. Okay. Yes, coming back over here. So Ali said, I'm going to Islamabad this weekend. Okay. Now just look at the punctuation marks which you have to be very careful with, because in an examination they usually give three or four options and then ask you to uh, choose the sentence with the correct punctuation mark. So one or two sentences are so similar that you get confused as to which one is correct. All right. So now just see the things which should be taken care of. The first word of the sentence, obviously, it is usually and it is always capital. So I do not have to tell you this. It's always going to be a capital alphabet. Okay, remember this. Then what you have to remember is this first alphabet always is always going to be a capital alphabet. Okay, other than that, it can be said, reported, quoted. Any word can be used in place of said. This word said is not always going to remain said. It can be Ali said, it can be Ali quoted, Ali reported, okay? Ali shouted, Ali screamed. It can be anything. Ali announced. But after that particular reporting verb, I will call this particular word a reporting verb. Okay, I'll tell you the reason why. So, if whatever reporting verb is used, after the reporting verb, you have to put a comma over here. This comma is supposed to be after the reporting verb, and not before the reporting verb. So remember this one point. Okay, the first point was this, and second is this, and the third point, opening inverted commas. Okay, the inverted commas would be opened, the inverted commas would be put up just where the sentence of the speaker is starting. In this case, it is starting just with the first word I over here. So the third point that you need to remember is where to open the inverted commas. All right, this is something very important again. So make sure you remember where to open the inverted commas. All right. Now the first alphabet after the inverted commas. The first alphabet after the inverted commas. In this case, obviously it is I. I is always capital, but otherwise, if it is some other word, all right, it can be he, she, it, or whatsoever. So in that case, make sure that the first alphabet after the inverted commas is always a capital alphabet, is always a capital letter. So it should be a capital letter, and then obviously in the middle somewhere, if it's a proper noun, like in this case, Islamabad is a proper noun, so you are using capital I for it. But that's usually whether it is uh, a direct speech sentence or indirect. In all the cases, you have to be very much careful about it. But with regards to direct speech and indirect speech, one very important thing which usually students forget is that this full stop. Yes, after the sentence, after the speech of the person whom you are reporting, whose sentence you are reporting ends, you have to put a full stop. Or in case of a question mark or some other sentence, that particular mark, an exclamation mark or a question mark or whatsoever. In this case, it's a full stop. So you need to put a full stop just after the sentence. Okay. You can call it point number 5. That should be remembered. And the last thing, this closing inverted commas, these closing inverted commas should be after the full stop. Some students put a full stop after the closing inverted commas. That would be considered wrong. And in an examination, you are definitely going to have option one of the options with such kind of an error, so that you get confused. But remember, you do not have to get confused. You have to put the inverted commas after the full stop or a punctuation mark that is at the end of the sentence. This is point number 6 that you have to remember. Make sure do not put this inverted comma before the full stop. It has to come after the full stop. Okay, this is after the full stop. Just remember. So you need to make sure you remember these 6 points. Okay, the first alphabet of the direct speech, yes, it has to be capital. Any alphabet, and when the sentence starts, has to be capital. So in this case also, and then after the reporting verb that is particularly said, there has to be a comma. Then you have to, yes, in some of the cases it can also be like that. Ali said to Imran. All right. So obviously the comma is going to be after Imran. But the third thing that has to be remembered is when the sentence starts, okay, you need to open inverted commas. You need to put open inverted commas just where the sentence is starting. And after that, the fourth thing, when you are starting a sentence, make sure that the first alphabet of the sentence has to be capital. And then the fifth point, there has to be a proper punctuation mark, a full stop, a question mark, or whatsoever after the sentence. And then the sixth point is that the closing inverted commas should be after that particular punctuation mark. In this case, it's a full stop. So after the full stop, you will put the close inverted commas. So this is all about the punctuation of direct speech, which is very important, and you need to remember it. Okay, we'll try to see that we do a few examples tomorrow, and you select the sentences with correct punctuation marks. There's another kind of punctuation, used for direct speech that is also there. Rarely used, but it is used, and sometimes they do give questions in your examinations. So we'll also discuss that tomorrow in the next class. And this is it with regards to the punctuation marks of direct speech. And if you have any questions, you can obviously raise your hand and ask me questions. All right, children.